Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another meeting of the Budget Committee for the Salem-Keizer Public Schools. We are going to start with committee attendance. And again, I'll name everybody's name, and please unmute yourself and say that you're here. We'll start with Jacqueline Bechtel.
Here.
Daniel Bethel.
Here.
Sharon Blassie.
Here.
Satya Chandragiri.
Here, please.
Kathy Goss.
I'm here, but my screen keeps flashing that my connection is unstable. So if I disappear for a minute, I'll just plug it in again.
Thank you for letting us know. That may be an issue tonight, so we'll just play it by ear. Kathleen Harder.
I'm here, also having connectivity issues, so sorry.
Marty Hyen.
Here.
Paul Kylo.
Here.
Jesse Lipo.
Here.
Adriana Miranda. Tyson Pruitt.
Here.
Virginia Stapleton.
I'm here.
Cynthia Stinson.
I'm here, and I just had an eye procedure today, so I may occasionally turn off my video and close my eyes, but I'm still here.
Thank you. And I am Levi Herrera Lopez. I'm the chair for this committee. So again, thank you for joining us for our budget committee meeting for tonight, May 26th. We will start tonight's meeting with having the superintendent share with us some additional information about the proposed 2020-21 budget. So Superintendent Perry, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see you back. I'll be anxious that someday I can see you in person. So I just wanted to highlight for you the revenue forecast that came out last Wednesday. I had fully intended that I would get you some sort of communication by the end of the week, but it took a little while for our state advocacy group, COSA, Confederation of Oregon School Administrators, to work to really sort through what the numbers meant. So what we have is about a revenue loss of, this is state revenue and lottery funds, is decreased by 2.164 billion since the March forecast. The more important number is the change from the close of session estimate, which is decreased by about 1.49 billion. The total general fund and lottery budget deficit then is about 867 million. The new corporate activity tax was also reported on. So this is a new one in those projections. The corporate activity tax is now predicted to generate about a $1.2 billion instead of 1.6. And then the real key that I think is important to be on all of our minds is that they're beginning to forecast into the next two biennia. And they are looking at down revenue forecasts for not just next year, but the 21 through 23 and the 23 through 25 biennium. So some things to know, and I'm going to say the word, this is what's based on statute. So if nothing happened, if the state legislature didn't hold a special session, this is what by statute would be required to be done. And this is also then, as far as those across the board reductions, the only tool in the governor's toolbox. So the first 580 million of the CAT goes right into the state school fund. The total state school fund reduction is about $490 million. This includes 308 million from the gen fund losses, 120 million in lottery, and 63 million in CAT tax losses. But the big number, 490, means about a $36 million reduction into Salem-Keizer. And remember, I think the last few times we've met, I've reported about a 48 million. So that's a positive. The revenue isn't as bad as we thought it could have been. They are projecting that there'll be about $593 million in the Student Success Act, and of that, $296.5 million in the Student Investment Account. For what they're projecting, if, again, no changes happen, the legislature doesn't meet, if it just follows statute, it'll be about a 37.3% reduction in the Student Investment Account. So the budget that you have proposed has 100% Student Investment Account funding in it, which is why I keep saying that the appropriations you have in this proposed budget will give us the authority to spend in the way with whatever happens with the revenue. So right now they're projecting a 37.3 reduction in Student Investment Account. The other thing that's starting to shake out is there's about $101.5 million available for Measure 98. And for us, that would be about a 35% reduction in the expected Measure 98 funds. The budget that's proposed has been is 100% Measure 98, just as we had in this current school year that we're in. So again, all still preliminary. They're still saying they're expecting a special session, that they won't schedule it for the next couple weeks. It could be mid-June to end of June before that happens. And as I've been visiting with the other large districts in the state, we're still all in that hiring freeze around the Student Investment Account. So even though this could look like good news for the Student Investment Account, until we get to the end of the day on this, we won't know. Last time you had asked about that, or I think Director Blassie had mentioned that the ODE was having several legislative presentations. She was thinking, so May 29th, ODE is presenting to the House Education Committee from 11:30 to 2:30, and on June 2nd, they're presenting to the Senate Education Committee from 12 to 3. But all of those will be linked in some sort of virtual format. So we'll watch for the links to those in case it's something that you're interested. There'll be really high level budget information about ODE and how all the state school fund works. I do know that COSA, our advocacy group, will be presenting in one of those, as well as I'm assuming potentially Oregon School Boards Association is. So I guess the key takeaway from the revenue forecast is it's still really a grim forecast. For Salem-Keizer in the Gen Fund, we're now looking at a $36 million reduction, so that's better than the 48. And then we're going to have to watch carefully the Student Investment Account and the Measure 98. And again, the same message is that this proposed budget and the document I provided you provides us all the flexibility we'll need in order to go through the adoption process, and then in whatever happens with funding for next year. If money fell out of the sky, which we're not expecting, we could always call the budget committee back if we had more revenue. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Levy.
Thank you. We'll take a couple of questions, and I want to start with Jesse just because he's on the phone, just to make sure if he has any comment or questions. And after that, I'll go to Marty. Jesse, do you have it? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Levy. Sorry, it just takes a minute. I have to key in a certain number in order to be able to talk. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have, I mean, of course, I have a bunch of questions, but you're not going to know the answers to the questions because we don't know anything yet. And so I just want to say, thank you for your work and what you're doing. And I mean, fingers crossed that we're going to be able to get this done well. I hope that the predictions of the revenue loss is more than it actually is going to be. But of course, we'll have to see. I mean, none of us expected this to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Marty, go ahead.
Thank you. So I received a question from a member of the public, and I'm going to kind of encapsulate the way I'm thinking. What they're asking is the proposal we sent in for the SIA back before we had this budget change. Can funds depending on what we got from the SIA, can funds from the SIA be used to fill in shortfalls in our regular budget?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Right now, I think the short answer to that is no. We would have to do some reworking of our student investment account in order to have certain priorities that would fit. We did have a little tiny shift from the Gen Fund, which was those therapeutic classrooms that were in the plan, because we wanted to do some expansion of those. But right now, the short answer, as I understand it, would be no, unless we went back and rework that plan. And we've not received feedback on our plan yet, or any further direction around our student investment account plan.
And I thought that was the answer, but I just wanted to make sure that, there wasn't some really cool way we could bolster up our basic budget if necessary.
Well, and it will be super confusing to people, especially the public, if what happens here is we have SIA funds and we can hire certain positions, and then at some level we have to cut things out of the Gen Fund. So that's really a confusing message for our community, for everyone. So if that happens, I think continuing to say no, we can't. I mean, and we can be creative and figure out, are there any places where our plans can overlap? But the shorter answer is no. And if we have SIA and we're cutting other places, that's going to have to be the continual message. We also get the question a lot around our bond funds. Well, you've got all the bonds, and why can't you just stop construction and put it towards programs? And the even clearer answer to that is, heck no, you can't do that, because that's actually illegal, because the voters voted for the bond for construction. So there isn't a way to, again, help our Gen Fund problem with the bond.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other questions? Satya?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just have a question. Moving forward, if there is not enough parents sending their children back to school, and with such disruption in our community, there is going to be a huge need for mental health priority. And children who already were having inequities are going to be hurting more, and we have added some more to that. Could we use the priorities of the SIA and look at ways in which to program, as opposed to just the number of employees, and see how to rework the program where we can have like a hybrid model with distant learning or in-classroom learning, and not lose sight of the students? Because we're going to have almost we are already a year less school compared to Washington State. Now we have added another 6 months. So some of these kids who are already struggling are going to fall back. So is there any way you can rework the program, as opposed to even with whatever employee you have, so that we don't lose sight of those priorities? That's the question.
The student investment account plan, I believe the board has approved it and we've submitted it. So we would have to, if we wanted to use those funds in a different way, we would have to go out for we'd have to rewrite the plan, and we'd have to have a public process around that, including public comment and a vote by the board. And so that's one answer. And you're right, both the mental health trauma and the academic trauma of our kids right now is something we really do need to consider. And it would help if we knew kind of what format we were coming back next year, which makes it really challenging, because if we're in a totally distance learning format, there are positions that could be repurposed to do different things or have different positions. If we're in a totally in person, that's different. So those things are all on our minds.
Virginia?
Hey, this is going to be a question that you might not be able to answer, but I guess I'll ask it because it's floating around. So if we do head back in September, what I'm seeing is that, what I'm understanding is that we're obviously going to have less budget, but in order to go back to any kind of normalcy or in-person classrooms, I'm guessing that there's going to be different protocols or different steps to even getting in the door, and everything like that we all know has dollar tags assigned to it. And so I'm just wondering how you are, well, and I don't even know if you can answer this, but how you are preparing for that, or if there are other funds available either from the federal government that are able to help local school districts with these increased protocols for coming back to in-person classes.
Yeah, there's one little bit of a short answer I can give there is we are expecting some federal CARES Act dollars to flow directly. I think it's actually in a reimbursement, but they flow to OD and there's a reimbursement process for us. And as I've looked at the rules around it, they're very broad, so they can be used for a lot of things. So not just keeping your classrooms cleaner, they can be used to help actually backfill some of the budget issues. But I haven't gotten a most recent estimate on that. And it started at 11 million and every estimate it goes down. So right now I think we might be estimating around 10 million, which is again, a good amount of dollars. So there is some of that. But you're 100% right. What I can't figure out is how we come back to school and in any way, and it doesn't cost us more. Even if it's in and out, what does that cost you? If you have to shift kids, if you can only have 10 or 15 in a room at a time, and there's certain capacity numbers. Think about the transportation system when you have to shift kids through the school, and then at the same time the cleaning protocols. And you have all kinds of issues with how do you get your teachers lunch if they have to stay with an intact group. And so I can't see a way that it doesn't cost us more money if you're going to do it really right. I do think we'll have some families that wonder, should they send kids back to school, especially if you have a student with that's a bit vulnerable in any way with their immune system. And so we also, I think, need to really work hard to stand up a much more robust online system, which again, costs money. But those are all the things that we're thinking about. We've got 4 work groups meeting right now, including, and then we'll feed those into the operations to say, what do they cost?
Awesome. Thank you. Levy, can I ask her one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
So we've heard about the transportation bond, and my question is not whether or not we need it. I know we need it, but these types of things are also all about perception and timing. And has this been put on the back burner, or is this something that you're going to still continue to go for?
Yeah, we are, you're 100% right. We're looking at that closely because number one, it's not that it's not needed, that 100%. And the way we've also built in the flexibility of the budget, though, is we don't have to make that decision tomorrow. We have to make that decision before we go out in the bond market. So one of the things that Mike and I had just talked about recently is how do we help the board understand the decision points around that to know, should we do it? Because that is a question. It's not, yes, we should do it, but is now the right time to do it? So it's definitely been one of the projects that's on our mind. And when we think about that framework for how we think about budget reductions, it's one of the things that, do you put a halt on a project like that?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I want to add one thing to that. This is not a bond that we go out and we're taxing our public for more. It's a borrowing bond. So that's one thing that we do want to be sure we make really clear with our public. This transportation package does not increase the taxpayer, because right now we wouldn't want that on our taxpayers either, and they would have to vote for that. But there are some impacts in the next few years in the Gen Fund around it, even though we've gotten it as darn close to cost neutral as we can. So but it's on our minds.
Thanks for clarifying that. I didn't realize that. And I think it's good, especially for us members to know, so that when we're talking to the public, we can clear up any misunderstandings as they come our way.
This bond does not increase taxes. They would have had to vote for it if it did. It's just a way to borrow the dollars, because we get reimbursements from the state on the on depreciation of a building and things like that. There's ways to do it if you borrow up front to help get reimbursed in that. So it's really close to cost neutral. But again, perception of a new building during a really tough time is hard. No new taxes on it, though.
Thank you for those questions and clarifications. So, so for tonight, we just heard from an update on what the outlook is from our superintendent, and we actually do have some public comment tonight. So we will be moving to that in a few minutes, and after that, we're going to be probably asking a few more questions and starting deliberations on the budget as has been presented. And so we have, again, tonight and tomorrow, if needed, as dates and times for us to make this recommendation. So we'll be taking those comments and asking those questions, but we know it's not the situation that we're in. It's not a normal situation. I hesitate to say that because everybody say it. It's cliche almost, but we still have a job to do. And so tonight, depending on how the conversation goes, we may actually be calling for a motion on approving on our recommended budget. But it does feel like there could be some more information, some more comments that committee members would have. So what I want to ask or offer as a suggestion is that in light of what we've heard, as representatives of the community, I think it would be important for the budget committee to come back at a later time and be able to ask questions and make comments on the proposed changes to the budget. This is not, again, it's not a typical thing that we do, but recently we had that opportunity made available to us during the student investment account process, which I personally found very helpful, where we were able to ask questions and learn more about the process. So I would like to offer that as a suggestion and just see if other community members think that would be what other community members think about that idea, because I think it would be a good way of keeping us engaged as representatives of the community, and also be able to feel like we can have input throughout the whole process. And I'll start with Sharon, see if she has any comments on that.
Thanks, Libby. I was just typing that I absolutely support that. I appreciate that suggestion. And we had chatted briefly about that. I think that's the right thing to do. Our budget committee asked really great questions, just like tonight. So I think when we have more information as a board, inviting the citizens budget committee members to come into the boardroom, sit at the table as you all have done in the past, and hear and be able to ask questions and provide comments. I absolutely support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, I'd like to. Is my speaker on all right?
Yes.
Okay. I also would support that, but I had a few other comments that I'd like to make. So I also went back to page 221 and 2 on our budget book. And that's where all the student investment account task force materials are. And I put things in some order. And as I looked at that, I don't want to lose all the time and energies that parents put into putting this together, that staff put in. I think we need to choose areas in that SIA account recommendations and stick to.
So we lost your audio for a minute there, Kathy.
For walkers. We've gotten so we take almost too much care of the kids. That's one of my suggestions. I'd like to look at how far and what kind of safety precautions are on their route before we pick up everybody. The next thing that I noticed was down at the bottom section of the second page, and they're targeted priorities. And I noticed that this last period of time, we had quite a newspaper article from ODE about what we were doing in special education. And I think we are going to have to, we're going to have to make that one of our choices. And I think we need to add a more robust special education program with what monies we get. I was delighted that we did get some money still from the SIA. I was a little bit worried that they'd take all of that. So that was really a step up. We're going to have some to do some work with. I'd also like to say that when money gets tight, the smartest thing you can do is go closer to your core while you're there. And we need to trim some of the extra things when we can. I thoroughly believe in that. And for example, this summer, we spent a fortune feeding kids. We aren't, in my opinion, a group that I'm here to teach kids, and I'm here for them to learn the academic skills. And I think we've made it too easy for some parents to just pat the kids on the back on their way out and assume that we're going to feed them breakfast, lunch, sometimes dinner. I don't think we have the money to do that. Believe me, I'd like a brand new red convertible Mercedes, but I know I can't afford it right now, so you won't find one in my garage. I think we need to approach things in that kind of a consumer view. Also, we're paying an extra $700,000 as we know it on sports transportation. Yeah.
Sorry, I want to make sure that we do give superintendent or other people a chance to comment on the questions, but I think I want to do that after public comment. So, okay. And we did lose you at the beginning, so so we may ask you to repeat your first statement after public comment, though.
Be happy to. Thank you, Levy.
Thank you, but we will come back after public comment on when we start deliberation. So Kathleen had her hand up, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Levy. I just wanted to speak to your suggestion. I think that's a great idea when we have a little bit more clarity and the superintendent is coming up with her recommendations to the board. I think it'd be really helpful to have the committee reconvene, both to ask questions and understand where we're going as a district, and then to also be able to be emissaries into the community, back to the community, to be sure that the message is clear as to how we're moving forward. I think there'll be a lot of angst. There'll be a lot of probably miscommunication, and hopefully we can help get the message out as to how we're handling things in this difficult time. So I agree, Levy. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. So, so it is a suggestion, so I'm not putting it as a motion for voting, but I do want to just get a sense of that there's consensus about this. And so unless I see somebody raring to go and say this is not a good idea, then I think I would like for the superintendent to just take this comment and keep that in mind when that process comes around. I think it would be very important to have that opportunity for all of us individually, but also for the community whom we represent. Jesse, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I did want to say thank you for bringing that up, Levy. I mean, that's something I was actually going to bring up myself, so I'm glad that you did. But I did want to say that make sure that that our board understands that this is a board decision, and so that we need to have a conversation about that and discuss it. I mean, I'm sure we're all in agreement about it, but I did want to make sure that people, that our board understands that this is a board decision that we would have to make. So it's not one that the superintendent can make. It's not one that the budget committee makes. We would have to do that. And so that would be something that I think that as a board member, Jesse would say that we should bring up in our next meeting. I think that would be very important.
Thank you, Jesse. Sharon?
Sorry, trying to unmute. And just to clarify, I think the phrase reconvene was used. I don't think technically, because that would be the entire budget committee, but I think we're all in agreement with your, well, I shouldn't say we're all in agreement, but the comments you've heard agree with what you're proposing, is having the budget committee come back in and hear the conversations, be able to ask questions, make comments, but it's not reconvening a budget committee to make a recommendation for approval by the board. Thank you.
That is correct. Thank you for that clarification. Marty?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, I want to make sure I understand correctly, is in a few of our board meetings, the budget committee members were invited and several came, and we were having some discussions, and we gave the budget committee an opportunity to ask questions, which is not part of our normal how we run a board meeting. And I'm thinking that's what you're asking to do, in which case I agree that's a great opportunity, especially things related to budget, where you guys are going to be having questions that you might want to bring from the public. Is that what you're talking about, Levy?
Correct. And I think one of the reasons why we're on the budget committee, those of us who are not on the board of directors, is because we have a lot of really good touch points in the community. And even if we don't have a lot of public comment turnout, we're still going out talking to people, gathering that information. So being able to sit in and ask questions, I think would be important. Definitely it wouldn't be in an official capacity, but just like during the Student Investment Act sessions, just being able to be in the room, have an opportunity to ask those questions or make comments we're hearing from the community, I think would be important. So, of course,
you can always ask those questions, and you can always come to the meetings, but I know it gives you an extra ability to interact with the board and whoever's presenting, whereas normally people just make comments and don't necessarily get answers to their questions. So correct. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Satya?
You know, this is an extraordinary time and extraordinary process. Normally, we would have passed a budget, and that would have been a starting point. But right now, we are going to pass something, but eventually we all know that it is going to be reworked. So I really think this gives us, so we have to work differently. We can't just say this is how we have done business always. The second important thing, this also sends a message that our school district and our board is very inclusive of the community and community input. So, I mean, ideally, if we didn't have a deadline, we would have continued this budget committee till you had a final thing, and then get the real community to participate. And so you are all the representatives of the community. So I think we should be prepared to make a modification and keep that open for community input. To me, this sends a very good message to our community that community is always welcome. We are a very inclusive group. We really want this to be a shared narrative as we move forward. That's my point of view. We can't just say historically we have done this.
Thank you, Satya. So we do have public comment lined up, so I want us to move to that. unless some of the committee members who have not spoken want to chime in on this. But seeing none, I would like to ask staff to get us ready for to start hearing public comment. And I'm not sure who's going to help us with that. Thank you.
So Javier should be on the line. Just make sure he's unmuted.
So before we get started, just a reminder, we'll have 3 minutes for the testimony. If people are using translation, we'll allow 2 extra minutes for that, and I'll be keeping time. So it sounds like we have the first person, so go ahead, Javier.
Sí, Javier va a estar en la línea.
Okay. ¿Me escuchan?
Antes de hacernos como recordatorio,
sí.
Vamos a tener 3 minutos para hacer el testimonio.
If they're listening to the stream, it's delayed, so that's if they can mute their stream, and we'll get going.
Poder dar tiempo a la interpretación. Tenemos la primera persona, por favor, adelante, Javier.
¿Me escuchan?
Javier, te escuchamos.
Ok. Buenas noches, miembros de la Junta Escolar y la Superintendencia.
If they're listening to the stream, it's delayed, so that's they can mute.
Poder dar tiempo a la interpretación.
¿Me escuchan? Porque estoy teniendo dificultades.
Por favor, adelante, Javier.
¿Me escuchan? Sí, buenas noches, miembros de la Junta.
Te escuchamos.
Ok. Buenas noches, miembros de la
Javier
Junta
va a hablar en español y Cheryl va a estar interpretando esto al inglés. Entonces, ahorita vamos a estar un poquito callados porque los comentarios van a ser en español. Ya da tiempo la interpretación.
¿Me escuchan? Porque estoy teniendo dificultades.
Por favor, adelante, Javier.
¿Me escuchan? Ok, mi nombre es Javier Quiroz. Buenas noches, miembros de la Junta.
Te escuchamos.
Ok. Buenas noches, miembros de la
Javier va a hablar en español y Cheryl va a estar interpretando esto.
So I put Javier on mute. Cheryl, could you ask him to put his stream on mute when we put him back on here?
Absolutely. Javier, ¿me puedes escuchar? Javier.
¿Aló?
Hola, Javier, ¿me puedes escuchar? Te habla Cheryl.
Sí.
Hola,
sí,
Javier,
sí,
¿me puedes hacer un gran favor? Tienes el stream del YouTube atrás, si lo puedes apagar y solamente, por favor, si puedes hablar por su teléfono. Javier, ¿me puedes escuchar?
Sí.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias, Javier. Javier.
Sí. ¿Ya comienzo?
Sí, por favor, Javier, ahí puedes comenzar, te podemos escuchar muy bien.
Sí. Sí.
Hola, Javier, ¿me puedes hacer un gran favor?
Sí.
Tienes el stream del YouTube atrás, si lo puedes apagar y solamente, por favor, si puedes hablar por su teléfono. Javier,
okay.
Sí, perfecto. Muchísimas gracias, Javier.
¿Ya comienzo?
Sí, por favor, Javier, ya estamos listos.
Ok.
Javier, ahí puedes comenzar, te podemos escuchar muy bien.
Ok, buenas noches, miembros de la Junta Escolar y la Superintendenta Perry. Mi nombre es Javier Quiroz. No se puede, estoy teniendo muchas dificultades.
Muchísimas gracias, Javier.
¿Ya comienzo?
Sí, por favor, Javier, ya estamos listos. Javier, ¿quisieras que yo te lo leo en inglés para ti?
Ok, buenas noches, miembros de la Junta Escolar y la Superintendenta Perry. Mi nombre es Javier Quiroz. No se puede, estoy teniendo muchas dificultades. Muchas interrupciones, no se puede.
Javier, ¿quisieras que yo te lo leo en inglés para ti?
Javier, ¿quisieras que yo lo leo en inglés para ti?
Sí, porque no hay muchas interrupciones acá, no se le entiende nada, no sé cómo entrar.
Ok, perfecto, Javier. Yo lo puedo leer en inglés si está bien contigo.
Sí, léalo por favor en inglés.
Ok, perfecto. Así lo puedo hacer. Good evening, Chair of the Budget Committee, Levi Herrera, members of the School Board and the Budget Committee, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Javier Quiroz. The Coalition and its parent leaders and all Latino Alliance Poder organizations want to let you know that at these critical times, it is very important that you as members of the Board of Directors and Superintendent Perry as your employee don't forget your commitment to continuing recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and retaining teachers of color, especially Spanish-speaking teachers who are bilingual and bicultural. We are still a long way from achieving parity of staff representing all of the 21,000 students of color in the school district. We must retain the momentum and staffing of the Department of Human Resources, but also demand that they continue to recognize the importance of using the equity lens when recruiting and interviewing and hiring new teachers and staff in general. Also, don't forget to retain the newest bilingual and bicultural teachers hired to meet the specific needs of priority student groups who may be at risk of being first laid off. We need to put a priority on school principals training, especially using the equity lens, to eliminate implicit biases in interviewing processes for hiring, which continue to be conducted across the board in preventing the hiring of teachers and other professionals of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier, and thank you to staff for helping us. And if to anyone who's going to be using that interpreting, please remember to mute your stream or turn it off when you're going to be giving your testimony so that there's no interruption. Yeah. So can we go to the next one?
Our next caller is on the line, Yadira, and please mute your stream from YouTube.
Yadira, ¿nos escuchas?
Sí.
Perfecto, Yadira, estamos listas.
Ok. Buenas noches, Levi Herrera, director del Comité del Presupuesto Escolar, miembros de la mesa directiva y superintendente Cristi Perry. Mi nombre es Yadira Juárez, directora de programas a temprana edad de la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer. Tengo 2 hijos en la escuela pública de Salem-Keizer, vivo en el noroeste de Salem. Todos sabemos que estamos pasando por una situación muy difícil, especialmente para nuestras familias, estudiantes y personal escolar, con este modelo de aprendizaje a distancia. Es por eso que esta noche me gustaría comentar sobre la importancia de recibir la adquisición del idioma inglés para nuestros estudiantes latinos. Como número 1, debemos contratar especialistas en adquisición de idiomas. Mantener el modelo bilingüe desde preescolar hasta quinto grado. Los primeros 5 años de vida son un periodo de desarrollo rápido e intenso. Sabemos que en las investigaciones han demostrado que durante este tiempo los niños desarrollan habilidades fundamentalmente importantes que influirán en el desarrollo socioemocional, cognitivo, el lenguaje y la alfabetización. Necesitan ser nutridos en su propio idioma y cultura. Un programa bilingüe realmente bueno debe pasar por lo menos hasta el quinto grado. Juntos podemos hacer que los niños se sientan más confortables y más listos, más preparados, más aceptados y bienvenidos en una manera de prepararlos para que sean aprendices de por vida. Agreguen una o más escuelas de lenguaje dual en el área noroeste, especialmente en el noroeste, convirtiendo un programa bilingüe en un programa dual. El programa de lenguaje dual ofrece a los estudiantes una forma de crear completamente la brecha académica. Los estudiantes se vuelven bilingües y bilingües en ambos idiomas. Ambos idiomas se valoran de la misma manera y también mantienen su cultura. No disminuyan la velocidad del camino bilateral de la escuela intermedia y la secundaria. Por favor, les pedimos que base todas sus decisiones en los lentes de equidad. Muchas gracias.
Hello, good evening. Levi Herrera, Chair of the Budget Committee, and members of the committee, the board, and Superintendent Christy Perry. My name is Yadira Juarez. I have 2 children in the public school of the Salem-Keizer, and I live in Northwest Salem. We all know that we are going through a very difficult situation, especially for our families, students, and school staff with this distance learning model. That is why tonight I would like to comment on the importance of receiving the language acquisition for our Latino students. First, we must hire specialists in language acquisition. Second, maintain the bilingual model from preschool to 5th grade. The first 5 years of life are a period of rapid and intense development. We know that research has shown that during this time, children develop fundamentally important skills and will influence social, emotional, cognitive, language, and literacy development. They need to be nurtured in their own language and culture. A truly good bilingual program needs to go through at least 5th grade. Together, we can make children feel fuller and more ready and accepted and welcome. This is a way to prepare them to be lifelong learners. Third, and 1 or more dual language schools in the Northeast area by converting a bilingual program to a dual program. The dual language program offers students a way to completely close the academic achievement gap. Students become proficiently bilingual and biliterate in both languages. Both languages are valued in the same way and maintain their culture also. Fourth, do not slow down the middle and high school biliteracy tracks. Fifth, base all of your decisions on the equity lens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Okay, next is Alma, I believe. Alma, you are on the line.
Buenas tardes, Alma, ¿me puedes escuchar? Hola, Alma, ¿nos escuchas? Hola, Alma. Hola, bienvenida, Alma. ¿Me puedes escuchar bien? Alma. Alma, ¿ahí estás en la línea?
I think we'll come back to Alma. I'm checking on her. Let's go to the next person.
Okay, so Lucia is joining the call. Lucia, are you on the line?
Lucia, ¿estás en línea? Buenas tardes, Lucia, ¿me puedes escuchar? Lucia, ¿me puedes escuchar?
Sí, yo escucho.
Perfecto, Lucía, estamos listas cuando usted está lista.
Sí, ¿en qué tiempo me toca a mí?
Te toca ahorita, señora Lucía, ahí puedes hablar.
Sí, permíteme.
Perfecto.
¿Ya estoy lista?
Sí, Lucía, estamos lista, ahí puedes comenzar.
Okay, gracias.
Gracias a ti.
Saludos, Levi Herrera, director del Comité del Presupuesto Escolar, miembros de la mesa directiva y miembros comunitarios del comité y superintendenta Perry. Me llamo Lucía Sánchez, tengo 2 hijos en el distrito escolar de Salem-Keizer. ¿Empiezo?
Sí, por favor, Lucía, y puedes seguir con tu comentario.
Me llamo Lucía Sánchez, tengo 2 hijos en el distrito escolar de Salem-Keizer. Vivo en el área del noreste de Salem. También soy miembro del grupo de padres líderes de la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer, que ha enseñado constantemente a los padres y madres a abogar por la equidad de la educación de nuestros hijos de nuestros estudiantes latinos.
Buenas noches, miembros de la
Lucía, ¿todavía estás ahí?
Sí, aquí estoy.
Ok, puedes seguir con tu comentario y si nos puede hacer un favor y apagar lo que tienes del YouTube de atrás porque tiene una inferencia, puedes seguir.
¿Empiece otra vez?
No, puedes comenzar ahí de donde terminaste y seguir con tu comentario.
Permítame. Porque escuché que empezó don Javier.
Sí, nosotros estamos en vivo y te podemos escuchar a ti, señora Lucía.
Ok, ¿está bien si empiezo?
Sí, por favor.
Ok, voy a empezar desde el principio, ¿ok? ¿Está bien?
¿Está bien, señor Levy?
No, ¿podría continuar donde se quedó, por favor? Si la escuchamos bien, señora.
Ok, gracias. Sí. También soy miembro del grupo de padres líderes de la Coalición para la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer, que ha enseñado constantemente a los padres y madres a abogar por la equidad en la educación de nuestros estudiantes latinos en nuestras escuelas, especialmente a los estudiantes del idioma inglés como segunda lengua durante 20 años. En este momento de la crisis de la pandemia de COVID-19, es importante que los maestros, los directores de las escuelas y los administradores comprendan claramente que las familias latinas deben participar más que nunca para ser parte de la solución. De modo que todos juntos podamos ayudar a salvar la brecha educativa en nuestros hijos y nietos. Durante muchos años hemos sabido que nuestra participación como padres y madres en las escuelas es clave para apoyar el éxito académico de nuestros hijos y graduarlos de la preparatoria preparados para la universidad. Una de las claves para una participación más efectiva de los padres latinos en las escuelas es contar con traductores e intérpretes y equipos altamente calificados. Actualmente necesitamos un traductor adicional para ser contratado y un nuevo equipo de interpretación para que más padres participen en varias escuelas al mismo tiempo. Por favor, prioricen la participación de los padres y madres en el éxito de los 17,000 estudiantes latinos del distrito escolar. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, School Board Budget Committee Chair Levy Herrera, School Board members and Budget Committee community members, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Lucia Sanchez. I have 2 children in the Salem-Keizer School District. I live in the Northeast Salem area. I am also a member of the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality Parent Leaders Group that has been consistently teaching parents to advocate for equity in the education of our Latino students in our schools, especially the English language learners, for 20 years. At this time of this crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is important that teachers, school principals, and administrators clearly understand that Latino families need to participate more than ever before in being part of the solution, so together we can all help bridge the educational gap in our children and grandchildren. For many years, we have known that our involvement as parents in schools is key to supporting our children's academic success and graduating from high school prepared for college. One of the keys to more effective involvement of Latina parents in schools is to have highly qualified translators and interpreters and equipment. We currently need an additional translator to be hired and new interpreting equipment for more parents to be involved in multiple schools at the same time. Please prioritize parent involvement in the success of the district's 17,000 Latino students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Let's go back to Alma. So Alma, I have unmuted you. Are you there?
Yes, sí.
Please begin.
Señora Alma, puedes comenzar.
¿Aló?
Hola, señora Alma, estamos vivos y te podemos escuchar bien. Ya puedes comenzar con tu comentario.
Ok. Saludos, Levi Herrera, director del Comité del Presupuesto Escolar, miembros de la mesa directiva y miembros comunitarios del comité y la superintendente Perry. Mi nombre es Alma Luma, soy una de las madres líderes del grupo de liderazgo de padres y madres de la Coalición para la Igualdad Salem-Keizer. Tengo 2 nietos en las escuelas de Salem y quiero hablar con ustedes sobre las partidas del presupuesto de salud mental que forman parte del plan de la cuenta de inversión del estudiante. Sé que enfrenta muchos recortes presupuestarios, pero los planes para abordar la salud mental no se pueden reducir. No se trata solo de enfermedades mentales o trastornos mentales en la forma en que las personas piensan al respecto. La salud mental también se trata de todos nuestros niños, sus comportamientos de estabilidad emocional, trauma que pueden tener, problemas de intimidación, que tanto el acoso como el acosado como el acosador sufren, y la seguridad escolar, no solo la seguridad de los extraños, sino también crear un espacio seguro para todos los estudiantes y maestros y personal juntos. Los problemas de conducta conducen a problemas de disciplina y esta crisis es una tormenta perfecta para aumentar el número de jóvenes a la prisión. La tubería de escape a la prisión es real. Todos estos problemas juntos involucran a más de la mitad de todos nuestros 42,000 niños. Debemos tener más capacitación en estas áreas para maestros, administradores y personal. Necesitamos más especialistas en comportamiento y asesoramiento y necesitamos más de ellos que hablen español y sean de la cultura latina. Finalmente, todo este personal necesita involucrar más a los padres para ayudar a sus hijos y trabajar con las escuelas. nuestros padres y madres que quieren ayudar mucho y solo necesitan orientación y una puerta abierta que haga todos los planes de salud mental desarrollados en el plan SIA y sean una prioridad a sus necesidades, a sus decisiones finales. Gracias.
Greetings. Levy Herrera, School Budget Committee Chair, members of the school board, committee community members, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Alma Luma, and I am one of the parent leaders of the Salem-Keizer Coalition of Equality's Parents Leadership Group. I have 2 grandchildren in the Salem-Keizer School. I want to speak to you about the mental health budget items that were part of the Student Investment Account Plan. I know you are facing many budget cuts, but the plans to address mental health cannot be reduced. It is not just about mental illness and mental disorders in the way people think about it. Mental health is also about all the children, their behavior, emotional stability, trauma they may have, bullying issues that both the bully and the bullied suffer, and school safety. Not just safety from outsiders, but making a safe space for all the students and teachers and staff together. Behavior issues lead to discipline issues, and this crisis is a perfect storm to increase the number of youth in prison. The school-to-prison pipeline is real. All of these issues together involve over half of all of our children. We must have more training in these areas for teachers, administrators, and staff. We need more specialists in behavior and counseling, and we need more of them who speak Spanish and are of the Latin culture. Finally, all of these staff need to be involved parents more in helping their children and working with the schools. Our parents want to help so much and just need guidance and an open door. Please make all the mental health plans developed in the SIA plan a priority in your final decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Yes, we have Gustavo signed up. I don't see him on the call, but I believe Cheryl has his message, so she can read that if she has it.
Yes, that is correct. Greetings, Budget Chair Levi Herrera, members of the School Board and Budget Committee, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Gustavo Diaz. I want to talk more about the behavior and discipline problems in the schools and how our economic situations is going to make everything worse. I agree with everything Alma Luma just said, and I want to add that mental health is a way to talk about children's behavior, but we also need to remember that all children are unique and they are not abnormal just because they don't fit into a specific pattern of traditional education. The plan for hiring behavior specialists is really important because they can teach these things to other staff. We have to stop making our children out to be the problem. I want to point out that our children face multiple barriers that are based on their cultural and ethnic differences. I believe we need to concentrate on understanding the many differences in every child and learn to build relationships with each one. School staff also needs to build closer relationships with parents and the whole family. This is a way we can greatly reduce the risk of mental health crises, behavior problems, and discipline problems that lead to suspensions, expulsions, and dropping out. I think more behavior specialists and professional counselors in every building are going to be very important to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, our final caller is Anna Olivia, and Anna Olivia is on the line.
Hello. I'll mute my computer now. Now I can't hear what's going on.
Go ahead, Ana Olivia.
Okay. Ready to go. Okay. Good evening, School Board, Budget Committee members, Levy, Chair, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Anna Olivia Palazzo Angulo, Executive Director of the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality, and a mom of 4 children, formerly Salem-Keizer students. We are a Latino-Latina-led community organization working to help Latino, Latina, and Latinx children and youth from immigrant Spanish-speaking families succeed in school. We come to you today not only as an organization of parents, but as a member of a sisterhood of many Latino and X-led organizations in the Willamette Valley, all which are working hard to help our Latino community, farm workers and service workers, the majority of whom work in essential services, serving you and serving our cities, serving our state, and serving our country. We are incredibly concerned about the students during this coronavirus crisis. Altogether, over half of the district's 42,000 students are at significant risk. It's an overwhelming situation and a daunting responsibility, but it is also a call to action. These are times in which leaders with courage, creativity, and determination will work together with parents and community members to educate our children. You are facing an economic crisis and massive budget cuts. Do not be afraid of risk. Do not seek comfort in the traditional way of doing things. You can and must, now more than ever, use the equity lens to guide you. We want you to know that we are here to help, to pitch in, to face this crisis with you. SKCE parent leaders have shared our main priorities in education with the school board and Superintendent Perry, and the SI task force process brought valuable insights and new ideas to increase student success for historically underserved students. We expect the final budget to show the results of the hard work of the community to bring the equity lens into the district's education policy and practice. The intent of the SIA plan can be rolled into current programs with new and inclusive philosophies, methodologies, training, and curriculum design that reflect the diverse needs of our students. SKCE is ready and willing to work with the Salem-Keizer School District in any capacity that will remove barriers to the success of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana Olivia. Is that the last one?
Yes, that is the last one.
Thank you, staff and interpreters, for helping us. There's always something that needs to be worked out when we're trying new platforms. So I really appreciate the staff and community members who joined us for tonight's public testimonies section of our meeting. Thank you. We're gonna move on to the next section of our agenda, and if I could ask staff to, yeah, thank you. It's really hard to see everybody when that screen is being shared. So, so thanks everyone for listening to that public testimony. What we're gonna move on now is to the portion of starting deliberations. And so we're gonna be starting with taking additional comments and questions, but really this is the core of our role as budget committee members. So we're hoping that at this point now we're gonna be focusing on identifying any changes that would like to be considered to the budget as presented. If any members do have a change that's identified that will increase or in any way change the budget, we would hope that the committee member will be prepared to identify areas of reduction, especially to offset any increases. So we'll take those comments and questions. I'm gonna come back to Kathy to get her the first comment that we didn't hear from her, and also just open it up to everybody. But this will be the start of our deliberations. So, so again, I'm gonna go to Kathy first because we did miss your first comment. We couldn't hear most of that, and so I'll give Superintendent Perry a chance to respond to that, and then we'll open it up for everybody else. So, Kathy. You're still muted.
So thank you, Levy. And I think all I will do quickly is, since you missed the first part, explain to people that I did suggest that they go to the actual SIA task force conclusions at the end of your budget. And I think that we can save a lot of time if we go to the comments made by the task force. We spend a lot of money and a lot of time to get those completed. And I think they're good. And I would like to see us make reductions on that list and keep on what we can. And I'd like to start it at the special ed section, primarily because we've gotten comments from ODE about that. And it does contain things on counseling.
Oh, we lost you again, Kathy. But I think we cut most of what your comment was. So I want to go to Superintendent Perry to give her a chance to comment on that or respond.
So I'm just going to comment on a couple things. So until we know our funding level for the SIA, I do think it would be hard to prioritize at this point, because 50% you might prioritize different things than you would if you just have 10 or 20%. So I agree with Kathy, and I was listening and taking notes intently from our parents, because many of those were around some of the SIA expenditures. And just a comment on food service. I know we'll all look for places to reduce, but as a comment on food service, I'm just coming off of helping at the food distribution from Marion and Polk Food Chair on Friday at Washington Elementary, and 600 boxes delivered and ran out. And so first of all, food it's a reimbursable item. It's a separate out of the Gen Fund. So we're required by statute and we're reimbursed for that. But more importantly, it's shocking that how great the need is when you deliver, every week at some of those food sites. So Friday, Sodexo prepared 35,000 meals that were handed out, and all of them were handed out on Friday. So it's just a comment about the need, and we're reimbursed for those. There are some additional costs incurred, but the need is huge.
Thank you. Sharon, I want to check if you have any comments. That's Vice Chair.
Hi, thank you. I think my comments are centered around the families, our coalition families that, we've been working closely with, and I can't thank them enough. They work hard, they meet on a weekly basis as leadership and advocate very passionately and eloquently for things, and they were so involved, as has been mentioned, in the listening sessions for the student investment account, and none of their requests are demanding. They are logical, responsible, equitable. And so I think my only comment about the proposed budget is, we've gone from such an extreme high. Several months ago, it was so incredibly exciting to see what we were going to be able to add. And, as we have to make really hard choices moving forward for cuts, I think there were some of the things that, they have highlighted time and time again, the families, and those also reflect, comments we heard from other families as well, things related to behavioral health, mental health, counseling, all things that we know are going to be even more in need. But I want to continue to advocate for the translator services, the interpreter services, and as they pointed out, high quality services. And I know those were things that we built into the budget So again, as we have to make cuts, just remembering those priorities and those requests. So that's really all I have right now. Thank you.
Satya?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of listening to the community comments and what I'm thinking with this budget shortfall. If I were to kind of see safety, health, and learning as three broad pillars on which we can design this equity and start looking at 52% of our students using safety, health, and learning, and then say, how can we accomplish the SIA directions or the goals using this budget? And some of the ways I want to know if we could club some of the schools together and try to scale up what some schools are already doing, especially when we are talking about online and hybrid and all those models, which I'm not going to see that everybody is going to show up on day one of the new year. So is there a way we can scale up? Maybe that will increase the number of workload per school. But we do have the platform which allows us to scale up and really help us transcend the digital divide that we are listening to. So the child from, say, North Salem can also have an access to West Salem's level of education. And our outcome doesn't have to be determined by a zip code anymore once we have a digital platform. So can we think in terms of clubbing that way and make it happen within the budget? That's what I'm really, because we have invested so much on the digital platform. Why not use it to still accomplish the equity and keeping safety, health, and learning as the three main pillars on which to design your budget? That's it.
Thank you. I'll see, Kathleen, if we can go ahead.
Yes, I appreciated the community comments. I thought those were very insightful and certainly do reflect, I think, what the direction that the school district is going and still needs to go further. I know this is going to be a very challenging time for the district, and I'm pleased that the leadership in place is there to rise to that challenge, and I know they will. With that in mind, I think at this point, I would like to propose a motion that we suggest to the board to approve the budget as written.
So I appreciate that. I do want to check to make sure that everybody has, at least I go through everybody at least once to make sure if they have any comments or any concerns or any input before I call the motion. Although I appreciate the eagerness to get this moving, but as everybody knows, I'm not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, but I think I can do that. So we'll come back to that. But apologies. I do want to make sure that everybody who's on the committee at least has something to say before we call the motion. Thank you. So I'll actually go to Superintendent Perry just to give her a chance to respond to any other comments or.
Not so far on any of the comments.
Thank you. Danielle?
Well, here's one for you, Christy. So in the last couple of meetings, we've had discussions about, they've been pretty high level discussions about this particular budget and the fact that the budget committee is going to hopefully accept it at some point and send it to the board to approve. And then it's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but once that happens, we're basically giving you spending authority up to the maximum of this budget to go into next year. And if there's any changes above this, you have to come back to us, but anything below that, you don't need to. Is that correct? Okay. So I guess what I'm concerned about and the feedback that I'm getting from the community is, and a primary reason that I ran for the school board to begin with was the significant lack of transparency of how the budget is really developed and how something in a crisis like this we are going to be informed of what that impact is going to look like. For me, it's not a secret that I think that classrooms are the primary goal. I don't want to see classified or licensed teachers going away. I don't want to see counselors going away. I think behavior specialists, I want the buildings to be intact. And so I would want to look at the administration and outside of those classrooms to be impacted with budget cuts. And so I guess I want to know from you, and I know this is a conversation in the community because it's in every chat room I've been in the last 2 weeks, is what really is the priority for you? And how are you going to assure me as a parent that coming back in September, hopefully in face-to-face with my kids in classrooms, that there's going to be adequate teachers, hopefully the same number we left in March with coming into September with?
So let me just respond to a couple things. One is the budget process, while the technical budget process doesn't require us to come back, I didn't ever say that I wouldn't share publicly when we did reductions. So that was never anything I said. I said the budget approval process can give us all of it that we need. I don't think I've ever been the leader that didn't stand up before the community and be very transparent. So I just want to go on the record and say that. The second thing is then, so you will get to see that. And given what we know about the budget, I won't stand up and make any guarantees. What I will guarantee is I will prioritize classrooms and core instruction as the last thing that gets hit. I laid out kind of our framework for that and shared that, but I mean, I could walk in two weeks from now and it could be a $55 million reduction. You just don't know. So I think for me to stand here and say there's no way there'll be a cut out in classrooms and your schools will look exactly like they are, I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not in charge of how we get our revenue. What I can guarantee is that I'll be really transparent and do everything I can not to impact kids in classrooms. Even among this group here, we have differing opinions of, is mental health, is academics, what's the most important thing? And we won't be able to do all of those. Our kids will come back with greater academic needs and greater mental health needs than they'll need, than they left with. So hopefully that, yeah.
Also, just to remind us, if I could have Sarah or Mike just speak to what our timeline is by statute, just to remind us of that responsibility.
Sure, I can jump in real quick. So you approve the budget and you make a recommendation to the board for adoption. The board has to adopt the budget by June 30th. And that's really that's really the framework for the budget committee as far as the process moving forward.
Thank you. Satya?
You know, historically, we have kept learning as the main priority for our school. All children graduate or all students graduate. We can still accomplish that as the main priority if children feel safe and connected, if children are mentally healthy and well fed, and we can still, so there are some foundational issues which I suspect could have been a barrier in the past where we were almost plateaued in terms of our graduation, or school absenteeism didn't shift much. So we can still accomplish that when all children feel safe, which will be reducing the bullying or violence in school, or teachers feel safe. And second thing is the mental health, which really ballooned out of proportion. It became very obvious, and we lost several children to suicide in our school district. So you can still get the learning objective. And it's just that how do we look at the learning objective, and how do the classrooms will look differently? How do we have social distancing when half the sessions show up? And so it will be, are you running multiple shifts? Because all that will help us decide how we're going to spend the money, where we're going to spend the money moving forward, and still accomplish your goal. That's what I'm thinking loudly on the record. Otherwise, we'll be doing nothing different. We'll be basically replicating the same old things that we have done all historically, except at a smaller scale, which is not going to get us the learning objective if we want to accomplish that.
Thank you. I want to check in with Jacqueline or Tyson, see if either of them have any comments. Tyson.
Just one question. I'm still trying to make sense of all of this. I'm curious, what do we gain by voting to approve the budget tonight rather than waiting till closer to June 30th?
So I'm going to answer what we have. The document itself is a fairly significant time-consuming operation from our financial. So what you gain is first of all, you have to get it through the budget adoption process. So that's a second step, which takes time, and you have to give public notice to that. And then any changes behind the scenes, the fiscal office has to do the work. So the most you can buy yourself is a couple weeks. And if we were in a time when a couple weeks would change the picture, I would actually say, hey, we'll have more information 10 days from now, let's hold. But we need, we're not going to gain that much, but there's a number of noticing requirements in the newspaper that we have to meet. So you have to, Sarah could go through them all technically, but you have to give so many days ahead of the meeting to put the notice in the paper, all the numbers have to match up, and those have to happen with each step in the process. So it isn't that we can, find out on June 15th and in June 16th have a meeting without the appropriate notice. It's a longer notification than like a school board process. So, and again, if we were in a place where we'd even have 5 or 10 days where we would have more information, and I was sure of that, I might actually make a recommendation that you hold. And I just don't expect that it'll change anything.
Okay.
Those are great questions, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, would you like to add anything to that?
No, that was perfect.
Thank you. Cynthia, any comments or questions?
I think I just want to encourage the board and the staff to be creative during this time. I know that's hard when money is scarce, but just as the economists and the governor and the legislature are starting to look to more biennia out, the decisions that are made now are going to impact our kids for several years. So, have to be mindful that this, unfortunately, isn't just okay, let's get through this year and then we'll be in better footing. What we put in motion now is going to impact the trajectory of schools for probably at least the next 5 years, maybe 6. So, I really appreciate all the work that's done. I also appreciate the hard spot that you are in that the information that we need to make a more informed decision just simply doesn't exist right now. And everybody, I think, is frustrated about that. It's just a matter of needing more time and needing legislators to be able to convene and make decisions based on the best information they can have. So I'm happy as a budget committee member to be involved. If you ask us back, would love to be able to weigh in on proposals, whether or not it's part of the formal process. I would be happy to come back and be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Virginia next.
Thanks, Levy. Yeah, pretty much everything Cynthia said, I would have to echo that. And also what all of our community members said, keeping that equity lens when we're looking at making those cuts and trying to do the best we can. And I know so many of you on the board and on staff, and Christy, and I know your hearts. So I know that this is not easy, and I know you'll do the best you can with what you have. And like Cynthia said, I'm happy to be a part of the process in the future and see what I can do and bring to the table as part of the community. So thanks for asking and doing all the work.
I just realized Paul has been hiding from me, so I'll check in with Paul.
I pass. I've been here waiting, but no, I'm good. I appreciate all the questions that are being asked.
Thank you. We'll go to Marty and then Jesse.
Thank you. So yeah, I don't really have any questions or whatever, but if you're going to keep Kathleen's motion, I will second it at this point while you're continuing through comments. That's my only comment at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Jesse?
As much as I would love to entertain you all with my infinite amount of wisdom, I think that a lot of great things have already been said. The only thing I would have to say is that I agree with our parents who came to speak. Even though we have to keep to run a tight ship, we need to keep the equity lens and make sure we're taking care of our vulnerable kids. That's it.
Thank you. Since I'm not great with Robert rules of order, I'll recognize myself and just, I've been in this community advocating for quite some time. And I can tell you that in the community, the families that I work with, we still talk about those days back in 2008, 2009, when lots of budget cuts were done and the impacts that it took almost close to a decade to start seeing really good times coming around. So being in this spot again doesn't feel good, but it's so many things are out of our hands. And I think I'm really thankful for all the comments that we've had from the parents, that even in this situation, they're making the time to come and join us and give of their time and of their wisdom. And for all of you community members, to also ask questions and know that this is not how we want the process to go. But I do want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to chime into this process just as normal, that you are heard. And if you have concerns about the budget as is, you can bring them up. There's nothing, this is our role, so feel free to bring them up. So we do have another meeting scheduled tomorrow, and if further meetings were needed, if you needed more conversation, that's something we could do. But I think I do want to recognize everybody's great input. We've got a couple more, so I'll get off my soapbox now, and I know Satya had his hand up, and then I think I missed Sharon. I'll come back to her last. Satya?
Yeah, I went through that budget book carefully, and granted that we're going to have budget shortage, but it doesn't reflect that proportionately we are placing more importance, greater proportionate resource for mental health or for other kind of equity-based, whether it's bilingual, dual immersion schools, etc. Is it possible for us to kind of, even though the total number may be less, but proportionately that we can have a higher allocation for mental health? Because I see the same number of psychologists last budget cycle, and the numbers are just the same. But it doesn't reflect that what the community has told us, that our children are suffering with mental health issues or socio-emotional learning difficulty. So I don't see that is reflected in this proposal, because we went with the premise that there's a good possibility we may not have SIA money. So how are we going to take that community's feedback into consideration when we are not sure of enough SIA money?
So the additional school psychologist and some additional mental health resources, because this was a roll forward budget, we did place in the SIA fund because we did hear that. If I would have presented a budget that had more, I would have had to cut other places. So it will be, I can't say to you as one member of the budget committee that I can assure you there'll be more psychologists in there, because the fact of the matter will be that then that will mean we'll cut somewhere else. So until we have a good number, then we'll be able to figure out what are the competing demands. I can almost assure that there'll be very few places in the budget that there'll be more of anything. I mean, I think that could be a given. And so then how do we reconcile with what the needs are? Because at the end of the day, we have to get kids to graduation too. And while mental health is critically important, kids learning to read is important. And without that, so it's just this, wherever you pull from, there's other needs, other places. So until we get that understand what the real number is and how we can save now, shrink in places that don't impact kids, until we can get there, we won't have a firm answer for that.
Levy?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Would it be appropriate for me to propose that we approve the 2021 budget as has been presented, but retain the ability to review it if there are any changes in income before June 30th? Is that a possibility?
I will actually turn to staff about that. As I understand, there's got to be pretty specific wording on the motion. Mike?
There we go. The motion has some technicalities in it. So the most important thing is that the motion, if you're going to make the motion to approve the budget, it is done as presented. So that part needs to be done just like that. Any other actions the budget committee wants to take, then after that would be up to you.
Mike?
I think Christy said it perfectly. Yeah, and the other piece too is there are official acts that are taken that are gates along the process. So by approving the budget, you're actually imposing and categorizing the taxes. And that's another piece that as we move through the system, that's very legalistic, but it's necessary as we move towards final adoption.
Thank you both. So I'll go to Sharon now. Oh, you're still muted. Sharon, you're still muted.
I think somebody's trying to help me. Trying to help me help myself, which is scary. So a couple of thoughts. I do think there is some benefit to having the full budget on record as presented, and not trying to modify it before we know the final information. I think it's good that the legislature and the community knows what, in order to fully fund education, this is what we need. This is what was proposed. This is what we thought we had funds for. And so to try to step back and say, well, let's let's pare it down to what we think might be the case. Again, we just don't know, but I think it's really important for the legislature to know how much it costs the second largest school district in the state of Oregon to operate classrooms and to address equity. So I think there is a lot of benefit to that. Yes, we know we're going to have to come back, but I think it's good. It's a good starting place for the community to know what it costs to educate children. And then to Christy's point about and Mike's point needing to set the tax rate, that is part of the wording for the recommendation. So in addition to making a motion, it actually has to be read. So I was trying to see if when we get to that point, if Kathleen can see the actual wording, because it's very specific. So if she's not able to see it, we might have to have somebody else read it when we're to that point.
And Craig's put it up here for you.
I can see it, so I can make the motion when we're ready.
I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Be it moved on May 26, 2020, that the Budget Committee of Salem-Keizer School District 24J/32 Marion Polk Counties, Oregon, approves the proposed budget for the 2021 fiscal year in the amount of $1,529,330,135 and approves property taxes for the 2021 fiscal year at the rate of 4.5210 per $1,000 of assessed value for the permanent tax rate levy in support of the general fund, and in the amount of $57,129,100 for the general obligation bonds levy.
Second.
And who was that second?
Marty.
Marty, thank you. So we've got the motion and we've got a second, so we can go into discussion of the motion, if any. And I'm having, so with this setup, it's a little hard for me to see everybody. So, so if you have a comment.
I do.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So I think the motion as stated here takes care of both our construction for the bus area and the bond and the tax rate for passing our budget that we're looking at. Is that right, Chrissy? Does this cover both?
That is correct.
Yeah. I would approve that.
Thank you. Any, Jesse, did you have any comments or for consideration?
I do not. Thank you.
Again, I'm just checking, making sure nobody's got their hand raised with this. So since I'm not seeing any hands raised or anybody jumping to make for more discussion on this motion. So we've got the motion, we've got a second. And so we're gonna move to vote now. So those in favor of approving the motion as stated, say aye.
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 So those abstaining, same sign. So hearing none, sounds like the motion has passed. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for bringing back the screen to normal. So with that, again, I feel like this, given the circumstance that we're in, we've met our role by statute, but there's still much work to be done in this district. And as members of the community and of this committee, I hope that we have a role to play in the next steps. So again, I want to thank everybody for their participation. Thank the community for putting up with us with this new technology. And I see Marty's hand up, so I'll.
Yeah, I just sent you a message. I heard you ask for those in favor, and I heard an abstain, and maybe my mic went out or something. I didn't hear you ask for any no vote, just in case there was somebody that was voting against it. Maybe I missed that.
I thought I did ask, but maybe.
Then maybe it's just me. So don't worry about it then.
And so I think that so I didn't hear. I think I did ask, and I didn't hear anybody say no, and I didn't hear anybody abstaining. So I see people agreeing with that. So I think we're good to keep going. So again, just thanking everybody for this. There's a lot of work still to be done by the staff, and I think our job now as committee members is to go back to that community and let them know that they still need to pay attention, and probably now more than ever. So go to your networks again and keep them informed of what's going on. I want to so the school districts, the school year has to start some way, and kindergarten registration is a time that's really busy, and especially now in this circumstance. So I want to ask Lillian to share with us some of the work that they're doing to get more people registered for kindergarten.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to share quickly, tomorrow at 1 o'clock on Facebook, we will be having a Facebook Live event that is a bilingual question and answer session. So any parent who wants to get more information about how to enroll their child for kindergarten, what the benefits are, where do they go to kindergarten, how old do you have to be, any question, we'll take them all. So we hope that tomorrow at 1 o'clock, whether your question is in English or in Spanish, we will be able to help and assist you and get you all set up so that this fall, in whatever shape that we are able to come back to school in, we will be ready to welcome those brand new kindergartners into the schools and get them learning.
Thank you. So just a reminder, since we did approve the motion, then this is forwarded now to the board of directors. So we will not be meeting tomorrow. So this part of the process is done. So just as a reminder that tomorrow's meeting is not happening. I want to thank Sharon for her help and Marty for her help with these meetings as well, and obviously all the staff. I just want to also give, before we wrap up, an opportunity to any other committee members or staff to add any final comments about this process or anything that's relevant to the group.
Levy, I would like to take a minute to thank you. I think you did a wonderful job keeping it confined and getting things going, and also finding a number of people that would agree to come in with their spoken and written comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll make some final comments at the end, but I'll let you take committee members first, Jenny.
Satya?
Levy, thank you very much. And this was a learning experience for me, and I appreciate how calmly you handle this, and Superintendent Perry for kind of being there through all this. I appreciate all the leadership, and rest of our board and budget committee members for thanking. Thank you. By having that families come and talk to the school district, we kind of opened up the Pandora's box of inclusive approach of letting people kind of be there and participate in a shared narrative. And I wish we continue that process, because ultimately this has affected everybody. And one of the things that we can start doing is to start bringing businesses and nonprofits and other organizations, family members, to sit and participate in this together as we move forward, and not as a district trying to do everything by themselves. This is all the more reason we need to bring down the wall and open the door and kind of make this as our community's shared narrative moving forward. It's urgently needed. We cannot do it alone. It's obvious. And we shouldn't be doing it alone. Whether it was setting up the internet was a good example where we had to do it in the moment. But at some stage, we need to really learn from that and say, we can't, tomorrow if the water main breaks, we can't be setting up water main for the community. We'll have to really start opening up our doors. Businesses have been hurt, and we really want them to participate, because tomorrow's workforce depends on what our children do and how they go through school. So we really, a lot of stakeholders are there, and we'll have to start inviting them to rebuild and build back better. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sorry, I was just going to add that if we have, looking at the schedule, if the board has any meetings between now and when the district has more information to share, we'll be sure and ask that Alice pass that information along. So any reports or any information between now and then, we'll make sure to get out to the budget committee.
Thank you. Jesse, go ahead, and then Danielle.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did just want to again say that anything regarding any additional involvement of the budget committee is a board decision, and so it wouldn't really be, it wouldn't be prudent for us to bring it up here, or, I mean, to talk about the idea of it here, but to say that we're going to do something or promise something here, I don't think would be a wise decision. As far as like just the process goes, I'm totally for it. I just think process-wise, we got to stick to it. And then secondly, also just wanted to say that I think it's, and while these are really tough times for us to be able to, as a budget committee, to be able to give a real recommendation when we don't have real numbers, I think is really tough. And so I want to say thank you to all the budget committee members for your willingness to come up, show up, be present, and understand what's going on, even when we don't even have real numbers yet. And so, I mean, that really shows your commitment to the process, how much you care about the community, and I think that's really cool. And so I want to say thank you to you guys for being willing to come out and do that.
Thank you, Jesse. Danielle?
I just wanted to give a public shout out to Mike Wolf, because over the last week or so, he has been very responsive to me with community questions that are pretty involved. And I'm sure he will appreciate me not blowing up his text messages anymore, but his phone calls to me to be able to decipher some of these things have been really helpful to a lot of folks who are really trying to understand the budget. And also, Christy, I think you're doing a really great job being on the hot seat. I know it's not easy, and I know that not everybody pays attention when this is happening, but I appreciate you repeating the answers to the same questions that I keep asking.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, well, thank you. So just a couple things that have been in my head. Regardless of what the board decides, but I'll keep the budget committee informed as I have revenue projections. I don't know when those will be, but I think that's really helpful for you to have those. technically we're set to have the adoption of the budget at the June board meeting. So that's going to come up really quickly. And one of the things we have to do is publish all the numbers that you approved today in the and publish them in the newspaper for a certain number of days. So we'll work on that. Our work groups that are working on plans for next year, one of the things that we're feeding into that is we're doing a number of listening sessions. I don't know if that's quite some feedback loops, just based on the experiences that we have. So while those aren't really related to the budget, they're related to the experience we've had in distance learning. And I just think that's really important for you to know. So we have a number of parent surveys, but we're also doing some individual phone calling of parents to answer some survey questions, things that, what worked, what didn't work. And then we're going to engage in our partners with that. So just know that there are a number of feedback loops. I really appreciated how the coalition organized their feedback tonight, because they came in understanding the challenge ahead and then could help us really think about what are some of those priorities in a reduction of revenue environment. So I really appreciated how they handled that, and it's very, I think, instructive to us. There's some things that we've learned in distance learning that will carry forward that are no-cost solutions, I call them. And one of the big things that we're hearing from our educators is about how their partnerships with our families have changed. And I know that testimony came in from the coalition about the importance of parents of partners. But every week I hold a district-wide staff meeting virtually, and I feed in equity questions. So I'm trying to move our equity work through this online format in a way we haven't been able to before. But over and over again, the themes of when I am approaching families differently, I'm learning so much more, and I'm understanding the barriers these kids are faced with and when they come back. So what I call it is the culturally responsive pedagogy they're learning along the way, they are articulating to us. So some of those things are no-cost solutions, having parents be stronger partners with us in the learning around their kids. And then even the comments that were made around a dual language school in the Northeast Corridor. Some of those things are just changing how you resource, not always hiring more. Part of our SIA plan was to have some coordination of that, because we need staff development. It's a different way of organizing those schools than the way they've been doing them. So know that I heard all of those. I took some notes, and we will go back to the things we learned in the SIA task force. I want to just do a huge shout out to both Erin and Cheryl, who have been moderating not only the board meetings, but the budget committee meetings. And in the midst of this, changed to do simultaneous Spanish translations in the middle of the process, so that our families were hearing at the same time our English-speaking families were hearing. And so to both Cheryl and Erin and Alice, who have worked on that and getting the public comment, huge kudos and a huge shout out for being able to push to what we needed in a very short order. So thank you for that. And thank you to each of you, especially that Jacqueline, brand new here. And please reach out and ask me questions. When you get those questions out there, you don't have to know the answer to all this. This is the life that Mike and Sarah and I live. So we're happy to answer quick text and quick questions for you in email or text messaging, just because sometimes a short answer helps you tell people. It's a really odd technical process, this budget committee process to begin with, combined with probably the hardest budget to forecast that I've experienced in all of my years. So for that, I thank you for your attention and detail. And please, even for the budget committee members, even though your job is done, please just reach out. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to even answer questions about process. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Tyson, Cynthia, Kathleen. Best wishes to Adriana. Thanks to everyone who's here with us, the staff and all the members of the board of directors. And with that, I think we could definitely go on till midnight if you all want, but I think we're done good job. So with that, I think we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.